A woman crashes her car on a desolate highway, stares blankly at the victims, then walks into darkness and disappears. Over the next month, she's spotted hundreds of miles away sitting motionless in diners for 12 hours, speaking in riddles, moving like a ghost across state lines. Her family searches desperately. Thousands report seeing her. But Patricia Meehan is never found. What happened that April night in Montana? Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy true crime stories like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too. The 20th of April, 1989. 8:15 in the evening. Highway 200, just outside Circle, Montana, a speck of a town in the eastern grasslands. Peggy Boer sits behind the wheel, her parents riding along. Dad's settled in the back seat. They're making the long drive to Great Falls to visit Peggy's sister. The highway stretches endlessly under the night sky, headlights cutting through pitch darkness. Behind them, Carol Heights follows in her own vehicle. She's an off-duty police dispatcher heading home after her shift, probably thinking about dinner, maybe what's on TV later. Normal evening. Routine drive. Then headlights. Wrong lane. Coming fast. Peggy jerks the wheel hard right, tires screaming as she veers onto the shoulder. The oncoming car barrels past, missing them by feet. Heart pounding, adrenaline flooding her system. Peggy's family narrowly escapes disaster. Carol Heights isn't as fortunate. The collision happens in seconds. Metal crunching, glass shattering. Carol's vehicle absorbs the impact. When everything stops moving, she climbs out shaken, disoriented, but miraculously not seriously hurt. She sinks down onto the pavement, trying to process what just happened, trying to steady her breathing. Then the other driver emerges. A woman, 37 years old. She approaches Carol slowly, deliberately. Stands there. Stares. Doesn't speak. Doesn't apologize. Doesn't ask if Carol's injured. Just stares. Carol would later tell investigators that those eyes, that vacant, emotionless expression, would haunt her for years. The woman looked through her, not at her. Present but absent. There, but somewhere else entirely. After several agonizing seconds, the woman turns and walks away. No explanation. No backward glance. Peggy and her parents circle back to help. That's when Peggy notices something bizarre. The woman who caused the wreck is now standing beyond the highway fence, 20 yards distant, watching the scene unfold like a curious bystander observing someone else's tragedy. Peggy calls out, waves, tries to get her attention. The woman looks at them briefly, then pivots and walks into the open field. Within moments, the darkness swallows her whole gone. Within 40 minutes, local authorities arrive. They run the plates on the abandoned vehicle. Registered owner, Patricia Meehan, 37, Bozeman, Montana, 380 miles to the west. Officers discover tennis shoe prints near the crash site. Women size 6. They follow the tracks across the farmland, flashlights sweeping the frozen ground. The trail continues for roughly 3/4 of a mile before vanishing completely at a property line intersection. It's well past midnight now. Temperatures have plummeted to -60 degrees, with wind chill. Brutal. Deadly. If Patricia wandered into that wilderness without shelter, survival would be measured in hours, not days. The search continues until 3 in the morning before being suspended. Dawn brings Patricia's family. Her parents, Dolores and Thomas, fly in with her brother and sister. The psychiatrist appointment Patricia was supposed to attend that very morning goes unfilled. Instead, her loved ones distribute over 2,000 missing person flyers across the region. Volunteers scour the mountains on horseback and ATVs. A helicopter joins the aerial search. Law enforcement combs through abandoned structures, old coal mines, every conceivable hiding spot within miles of the crash site. 5 days of intensive searching. Nothing. Patricia Meehan has vanished as if she never existed. Born November 1, 1951, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Patricia grew up in what everyone described as a warm, tight-knit household. Parents who loved her. Siblings she stayed close to. Childhood friends remembered her as gentle, nurturing, always wearing that soft smile. Her career path seemed natural. Early childhood development at Oklahoma City College. She adored working with kids, spending years in daycare centers and classrooms. It fit her personality perfectly. Then, at 33, everything shifted. 1985. Patricia moved to Bozeman, Montana, and became a ranch hand. The career change surprised everyone who knew her, but she explained it simply. She loved animals. Needed a change. Wanted wide open spaces. She took various jobs over the next 4 years, working with horses, performing odd tasks to stay financially afloat. But something was changing inside Patricia. Friends noticed it first, then family. The brightness dimmed. Her famous smile appeared less frequently. Depression settled in like winter fog, heavy, persistent, isolating. Her mother, Dolores, believed Patricia was wrestling with deep existential questions, evaluating her choices. Morning roads not taken. She missed the children from her teaching days, grieved the family she never started, wondered if she'd squandered her potential. By spring of 1989, the depression had intensified. Patricia scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist in Bozeman for Friday, April 21st. 2 days before that appointment, Wednesday, the 19th, Patricia called her parents. She sounded strained, overwhelmed, said she wanted to come home to Pittsburgh, that the stress had become unbearable. Her parents encouraged her immediately. Come home. We'll figure this out together. That same day, her landlord spoke with her. He'd later become one of the final people to see Patricia before she disappeared. His assessment? She seemed unusually energetic, hyper, even, but otherwise normal. The next afternoon, Thursday the 20th, Patricia left Bozeman in her car. We don't know her destination. We don't know her state of mind. We don't know what she was thinking as she drove east instead of southeast toward Pennsylvania. What we know is this. By 8:15 that evening, she'd traveled 380 miles in the opposite direction from Pittsburgh, driving on the wrong side of a dark Montana highway, seconds away from a collision that would change everything. Let's talk about distance and direction, because the facts don't add up. Bozeman sits in western Montana. Circle, where the crash occurred, is in the eastern portion of the state, almost touching the North Dakota border. 380 miles separate them. That's 5.5 to 6 hours of driving, depending on your route. Circle isn't a destination. It's barely a town. In 2020, the population was 591 people. Back in 1989, even smaller. There's nothing there. Flat grassland, scattered buildings, endless horizon. If Patricia left Bozeman between 2 and 3 that afternoon to arrive at the crash site by 8:15 that evening, she was heading northeast, deeper into Montana, farther from Pennsylvania, away from her family, away from everything that made sense. Why? She told her parents she wanted to return to Pittsburgh. She had a psychiatrist appointment the following morning in Bozeman. So what was she doing nearly 400 miles away, driving toward North Dakota in the middle of the night? Investigators never solved that puzzle. Her family couldn't explain it. Patricia had given zero indication she planned to travel anywhere, especially not halfway across Montana on the eve of her mental health appointment. Some speculated she got lost. Back then, GPS didn't exist. You navigated with paper maps and highway signs. Maybe she took a wrong turn, ended up disoriented in the rural darkness. But 380 miles? That's not a wrong turn. That's a journey. Others wondered if she was fleeing, running from the psychiatrist, from the decision to return home, from her entire life. Maybe she just drove, letting instinct guide her until she ended up in Circle by pure chance. The darkest theory suggests intention. Suicide. That she drove to a remote location specifically to cause a fatal collision. It would explain the wrong side of the road detail. It would explain what happened next. After impact, Carol Height sat on the cold pavement, processing shock and confusion. She remembers Patricia emerging from the shadows like an apparition. That blank stare. That complete absence of normal human response. An image burned into memory forever. When Peggy Boer and her family returned to the scene, Patricia was already leaving, climbing over the fence, turning to observe everyone as if watching a movie, disconnected from her own actions. They called to her, tried to bring her back. She turned away and walked into the field, into blackness. Peggy's father stayed with Carol. Peggy and her mother drove back to Circle to contact authorities. When police arrived 40 minutes later, they found the abandoned vehicle and those size 6 tennis shoe prints leading into the farmland. The tracks continued for miles before disappearing at a boundary between two properties. Officers searched until 3 in the morning. Found nothing. Around the same time, they notified the Meehan family that their daughter had vanished. The temperature that night reached -60 degrees with wind chill. If Patricia wandered into that field without shelter, exposure would have killed her within hours. Hypothermia doesn't wait. It doesn't negotiate. But then the reports started coming in. May 4th, 1989. 2 weeks after the crash. A police officer in Luverne, Minnesota, over 300 miles from the accident site, receives a tip about a woman behaving strangely at a Hardee's restaurant. She'd been sitting alone in a booth for over 5 hours, just drinking water, staring. When the restaurant closed, employees said she walked to a nearby 24-hour diner. The officer approached, attempted to question her. The woman refused to provide her name, claimed she was from Colorado, then changed her story, said she was from Israel. No identification, no coherent explanation, no further action taken. She eventually left. The following day, May 5th, 2 more sightings. A waitress at a truck stop diner in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, reported a woman matching Patricia's description sitting inside from midnight until 11:30 in the morning. Nearly 12 hours, drinking coffee, barely moving. That same day, another waitress at a diner in Muddo, South Dakota, 200 miles away, saw someone who looked like Patricia between 10 and 11 in the evening. But this time, Patricia wasn't alone. A man appeared to be with her, someone in his 30s. Then, May 19th, almost a month after the accident, a waitress at a restaurant near Patricia's home in Bozeman recognized her. Patricia walked in during the morning rush around 8:20, asked if she could be served quickly because she needed to be somewhere by 9. The waitress asked where she was headed. Shopping, Patricia replied. What should have been a quick meal stretched into hours. The waitress observed Patricia becoming increasingly disoriented, watching people through the window, talking to herself, lost in some internal world. Eventually, she left. Family members and police confirmed this sighting after interviewing the staff and showing photographs. The waitresses were adamant. We'd bet our lives it was her. Think about that sequence. Patricia drove 380 miles to Circle, crashed, disappeared into a field, then somehow traveled to Minnesota, South Dakota, and back to Bozeman, all within a month. Appearing at diners, sitting for hours, acting confused, never contacting family, never going home, just moving. By June, 10 weeks post-accident, over 25 sightings had been reported, 3 confirmed by law enforcement. More reports flooded in from the Pacific Northwest, many at truck stops between Montana and Seattle. Investigators theorized Patricia might be trying to reach Washington. Her sister lived in Seattle. Her ex-boyfriend, Kurt Fletcher, lived in Spokane. Over the next year, hundreds more sightings poured in. Washington, Montana, South Dakota, Idaho. By the investigation's end, over 5,000 sightings of Patricia Meehan had been reported. 5,000. Her parents received notices of alleged sightings from virtually every state, including Alaska and Hawaii, within the first 2 years. Obviously, most weren't legitimate. Probably 99% were cases of mistaken identity. But the sheer volume created a nightmare for investigators. Every tip required follow-up. Every call demanded attention. Patricia's family traveled across the country chasing leads that led nowhere. Imagine that emotional toll. Every phone call sparking hope. Maybe this is the one. Maybe we found her. Then, nothing. Another dead end. 5,000 times. September 1990. 16 months after the accident. A woman was arrested in Kellogg, Idaho, for littering. The arresting officer became convinced she was Patricia. Patricia's father, Thomas, and his wife spoke with the incarcerated woman by phone, hoping to identify her voice. Despite superficial similarities, they concluded definitively that this wasn't their daughter. Police confirmed through fingerprint analysis, not Patricia. But Kurt Fletcher, Patricia's ex-boyfriend, noted something troubling. The woman bore a remarkably strong resemblance to Patricia. Even the voice sounded similar. This raised a critical question. How many of those 5,000 sightings were actually this other woman? How many false trails had the family followed because someone else looked like Patricia? Police and psychiatrists developed this explanation early. Patricia's behavior at the crash scene, the blank stare, walking away like a spectator, combined with the subsequent sightings suggested severe cognitive disruption. Traumatic brain injury can cause confusion, disorientation, memory problems, mood changes, unusual behavior. Post-traumatic amnesia occurs when someone regains consciousness after injury, but behaves bizarrely or uncharacteristically. Symptoms include memory loss for current events, confusion, agitation, and a tendency to wander. That description matches Patricia's actions. The emotionless stare, walking away from her own accident, sitting in diners for hours, talking to herself, acting profoundly disoriented. But there's a significant problem. Post-traumatic amnesia typically lasts minutes, hours, days, or weeks. Rarely months. We're talking about sightings that continued for years. Another possibility, dissociative amnesia. A rare condition where you forget important personal information. In extreme cases, called dissociative fugue, you might forget most or all details about yourself, travel to a different location, and adopt a completely new identity. Dissociative amnesia links to overwhelming stress, often triggered by traumatic events like accidents. One documented case involved a middle manager passed over for promotion who didn't come home from work. He was reported missing and found a week later, 600 miles away, living under a different name, working as a short-order cook. When police located him, he couldn't recognize family, friends, or co-workers. Couldn't explain his lack of identification. That sounds remarkably similar to Patricia's situation. Dissociative amnesia affects roughly 1% of men and 2.6% of women in the general population. Rare, but medically documented. Consider Patricia's mental state in the days before the crash. Years of depression, withdrawal. Her mother observed her examining her life, feeling unfulfilled, missing the children she used to care for, grieving the family she never had. Classic symptoms of a midlife crisis. Feelings of emptiness, meaninglessness, intense regret, chronic reminiscence about the past. April 19th, the day before she disappeared, her landlord described her as unusually hyper. Mental health professionals often express concern when someone severely depressed suddenly becomes happy or energetic. Sometimes it means they've made peace with a decision. They've formulated a plan. Maybe Patricia's plan was to disappear. Get in her car. Drive somewhere far away. Start fresh. The crash wasn't intentional, just exhaustion, falling asleep at the wheel after 6 hours of driving. When it happened and she realized she'd hurt someone, guilt and fear overwhelmed her. She walked away, kept running, used the accident as an opportunity to sever all ties with her previous existence. That would explain why she never contacted family despite thousands of sightings. Why she kept moving, kept hitchhiking. Why she returned to Bozeman, perhaps to collect belongings or settle affairs, then vanished again. But it doesn't explain the disoriented behavior. The talking to herself. Sitting in restaurants for 12 hours drinking coffee. Claiming to be from Colorado, then Israel. Unless it was all performance. A deliberate act to avoid identification. Make people think she had amnesia so they wouldn't press for details. Possible, but maintaining such an elaborate deception for years seems unlikely. Perhaps the simplest explanation. Patricia walked into that field and never found her way back. Negative 60-degree temperatures with wind chill. Darkness. Disorientation. Hypothermia would have claimed her within hours. Her remains could be somewhere in that vast Montana farmland, never discovered despite extensive searches. The problem? Those credible sightings. 3 confirmed by police. Waitresses willing to stake their lives on the identification. Hard to dismiss entirely as mistaken identity. Maybe the accident caused temporary amnesia or profound confusion. Patricia wandered for weeks or months. Gradually regained fragments of memory. But by then, she'd been gone so long she couldn't face returning. So she kept running. Or maybe those early sightings were genuine, but Patricia died shortly afterward. Montana winters are merciless. Hitchhiking is dangerous. She could have encountered foul play. Another accident. Succumbed to elements in a different location. After Patricia disappeared, her family went through her belongings. They found undeveloped film in her camera. One photograph became iconic, featured prominently on Unsolved Mysteries and burned into public consciousness. A self-portrait. Patricia in a mirror. The 1989 equivalent of a selfie. Eyes wide open. Heavy makeup. Expression impossible to decipher. Some see sadness. Others see emptiness. A woman staring into her future, uncertain what's approaching. Knowing she disappeared shortly after taking this photo makes it haunting. Like she's looking at us across time, asking a question we'll never be able to answer. Patricia's father, Thomas, told Unsolved Mysteries. More than anything else in the world, I want her back with us. We would then know she was safe. not knowing who she's taken a ride from. That's my biggest worry. I just pray day in and day out that she's with some good people. So what truly happened to Patricia Meehan? The possibilities remain. She died of exposure that first night. Her body never recovered from the Montana wilderness. She suffered brain injury and amnesia, wandered the country for months or years, eventually died from exposure, foul play while hitching, or natural causes. Her body never identified. She intentionally vanished, used the accident as cover to start over, lived off the grid, eventually settled somewhere under a different identity. Some combination, temporary amnesia that gradually lifted, but by then she'd been gone too long to return, so she kept running until tragedy found her. Here's what we know with certainty. Patricia Meehan crashed her car on April 20th, 1989. Walked into a field. Disappeared. She was possibly seen multiple times over subsequent months, exhibiting strange behavior, never contacting family, never coming home. At the time of her disappearance, Patricia was 37 years old. Shoulder-length blonde hair with bangs. 5 feet 3 inches tall. 117 pounds. Today, Patricia would be in her 70s. Tragically, both her parents passed away without ever learning what happened to their daughter. The case remains open. Patricia Meehan is still listed as missing. If you have any information about what happened to Patricia Meehan, please contact the Macomb County Sheriff's Office at 406-485-3405. I'm your host. This has been Cold Case Chronicle. If this story moved you, please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button to help keep these cases alive. Every share brings us one step closer to answers. Until next time, stay curious.